Well, good morning, fellow constitutionalists, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Dan Clements Show, a Christian political talk show. This is episode 831. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior fighting for your right just to be an American. It is June 28th in the year of our Lord 2017. Remember, we're hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control, and He does love you. And I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios here in the beautiful central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State. And we're on our way to a heat up here in the central Susquehanna Valley come Friday. I've come undone. I don't like that button being undone on this particular shirt. Doesn't feel right. All righty. Hopefully everybody's having a good Wednesday. It is hump day, and hopefully everybody is doing well. I just got to do a shout out here real quick. Dave, if you are listening to Blog Talk Radio, please let me know to make sure that the audio is coming through, because I have my final setup here for the Dan Clements Show, and I'm simulcasting off my main computer on Blog Talk Radio so it doesn't hose up my other two computers. My other two computers are running just ducky. I'm actually recording the show on both of my streaming computer and my production computer, and I'm broadcasting through Blog Talk Radio on my what I call my main computer. So I got this third computer. I had to do it, and there's one other thing I'm gonna check into doing. I gotta check on my router. I may have to get a little bit bigger router as far as my Ethernet capacity, because I think that's what my problem is. I got a buffering problem between my production and my streaming computer. So hopefully I won't lose the signal going over to the web. I was having some issues this morning, but everything looks good on there now, including your host. And I'm able to see the chat room and interact actually on the chat room now, because it is on my main computer. Folks, the fake news just keeps rolling. It never ends. I mean, we knew, at least I did. I'm going to say we accommodatively, we knew that the lamestream media was putting out fake news when it comes to the Russia story. And I have two videos here, one by Project Veritas that I want to share with you, and the other one's a Bernie Sanders one, and I'm thinking I'm going to share that one with you first, because honestly, this is the attitude of progressives and Democrats when it comes to the news. It really is. What Bernie Sanders told this Fox News reporter, which I think was totally inappropriate, and he just deflected all the questions about this. And this is one of those stories that's sort of flying underneath the radar unless you're a conservative. So let's get into the show here today. Look, folks, one of my affiliate sponsors is gearxs.com. Folks, they have some fantastic deals. You ought to see some of the stuff over there. Camping gear, swimwear, gadgets of all kinds over there at GearXS, and they're running their summer sale right now. So if you like what you hear on the Dan Clements Show and you want to support the show, go to the danclementshow.com and click on the GearXS widget over there, and it'll take you right to the website. And it's, like I said, they're fantastic folks over there, and they have a lot of good deals over there. And I haven't used them yet myself, but I'm told that they do. I have some friends that have told me they've actually bought over there, and they got what they paid for, and it was decent. It was decent stuff, and they were happy with their purchases. So if you want to help the show, support one of my affiliate sponsors, gearxx.com. All right. You're going to notice me, just a show note here, and thanks, Dave, for letting me know about you can hear the sound on both sites. Hopefully the sound levels are really good, coming across really good on the sites, and hopefully there's no choppiness anymore on Blog Talk Radio. That was the one thing someone did leave a comment in there last week or so, that it was choppy. And the reason why it was choppy, I was making my streaming computer do too much. So thanks, Dave, for letting me know about that. Today's daily Bible reading comes from the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verses 13 through 18. This is sort of continuation on our daily Bible reading. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand the evil of the day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace, and above all, taking the shield of faith, which you will be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplication for the saints. The one thing I want to point out there, when he talked about up there at the end of verse 13, going into verse 14, having done all to stand, stand. And then he says, stand therefore. And this is Rusty Stark was a preacher at a local Church of Christ years ago, and he was a really neat guy. And this was one of like Rusty's rules of biblical interpretation. If you see the word therefore, look to see what it's there for. So in Ephesians 14, stand therefore. So you need to why do we have to stand? And what do we stand with? And it's a really good explanation of being a warrior for God, you know, and our warrior, us being warriors are spiritual warriors, folks. But much louder than YouTube. Okay, well, that's fine. I'm not sure how to increase the YouTube yield on that. I have everything, I have all my volumes pumped up on that, so I'll have to work on that just a little bit more as far as that goes. But as long as you can hear me on YouTube, Dave, and you can crank up your speakers, I think we'll be okay with that. Today's quote meal, I love this quote meal. It's from Vanette Z. Bright. Decisions which are made in the light of God's word are stable and show wisdom. Decisions that are made in the light of God's word are stable and show wisdom. And folks, that's what I try to do on this show here. I look at politics, I look at all the situations of my life through the prism of God's word and try to make sound, moral, wise judgments in the way and the things I should do. So, all right, let me crank this back just a little bit. Okay, almost too loud. Okay. Well, like I said, you can always adjust your volumes. I'm glad we're getting the volume out there instead of not having enough volume. That always irritated me when I put out something that didn't have enough volume. You couldn't crank your speakers up loud enough to hear it. So hopefully everything's working well and everything looks good on here. Today, and this is a really good one. This is the short Bible lesson today is by Al Shannon. And it's a question, does God hear sinners' prayers? And now this is a twofold question that Al handles in his lesson. So go over to thedanclemenshow.com and click on that and read up on that lesson. That's over at biblicalproof.wordpress.com. And he's one of the ones I put into rotation for my Bible lessons every day. So, oh wow. I just crashed on my Firefox for some reason on my desktop, just crashed. And hopefully it brings everything back up the way it's supposed to. Hang on a second, folks. Oh my. See if we're connecting, see if we're still connected up there. All right. Connecting. Hang on a second, folks. Didn't expect this out of my main computer.
Your show now, press 1 to hear.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now.
Okay, they're reconnecting us now. Okay, hopefully that should clear up the Blog Talk Radio. And I don't know what happened there. Just every now and then my Firefox crashes, and I don't know what's going on with it. So hopefully everything's back up and running. I don't think anybody lost me on the YouTube stream, but I know they probably lost me on the Blog Talk Radio stream. It looks like everything's working well there now. Okay. Let me see here where we're going to go. All right. Let me do this Bernie Sanders. Let me get this set up here. Sanders dodges question about FBI investigation. This is by Tracy Masteler, June 27th, yesterday. Bernie Sanders, independent Vermont, refused to answer when asked Monday about an FBI investigation centering around his wife, Jane Sanders, instead of replying with an unrelated comment regarding the Senate Republicans' health care legislation. Bernie Sanders diverted the reporter's initial question about the FBI investigation by asking her which outside outlet she was with. The reporter readdressed the topic, asking the senator if he thought the investigation was politically motivated. And I'm not sure. Let me see here. I just want to play the video for you. Doesn't say who the reporter is. I was looking at that earlier and I couldn't find out who the reporter was. So maybe we'll see it here in the video. So let's go over and watch this video here as I get this set up. And and I'm going to lead into something. I don't think I'm leading too far, but I'm going to lead into something here. And hopefully I'll be able to tie things in with this fake news narrative that keeps rolling on.
Senator Bernie Sanders refused multiple times to answer questions from Fox News Senate producer Kara Rowland about the FBI investigation that has reportedly come to focus on Sanders' wife, Jane.
Where are you from? Fox News. CBS is reporting on this. Politico is reporting on this. Do you still believe it's politically motivated, sir?
Well, I'm glad that you're interested in the fact that the Republican leadership is proposing legislation which would throw millions of people off of health insurance.
The case centers on Jane Sanders' tenure as president of Vermont's Burlington College from 2004 to 2011 and a loan application she filed in 2010 to help the school expand. Published reports allege Sanders claimed $2.6 million in pledges, but as the college spiraled into bankruptcy, Sanders reportedly raised less than $700,000, leading the Trump campaign chair in Vermont, Brady Tunsing, to ask federal prosecutors and banking regulators to investigate what he termed apparent federal bank fraud.
I have seen public records documents that show that an investigation has been started. Those records were with the Vermont Department of Education, where the U.S. prosecutors were asking the Department of Education to preserve records as part of their investigation.
Senator Sanders' campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, did not respond to Fox News' request for comment, but he told Politico the couple has hired Richard Cassidy, a well-regarded Vermont lawyer and Sanders' superdelegate, and Lawrence Robbins, a Washington attorney whose clients have included Scooter Libby, the chief of staff to Vice President Cheney, who was convicted in the Valerie Plame case. Democratic Party activists discounted the case, hurting Senator Sanders politically, at least for now.
He's going to get a big benefit of the doubt, particularly with his supporters.
Senator Sanders' Senate staff did not respond to multiple requests for comment either. Asked about this case by a local Vermont reporter last month, the senator called it nonsense and noted.
All right, folks, that was about the Sanders case there. Loud and echoes. Okay, I had too much stuff going on there then. I'm still setting up my third rig here, but I had it set up enough where I could run it, and I just got to make sure I control everything correctly. All right, getting back over this. Now, nowhere in that interview with that Fox News reporter did Senator Sanders answer the question that was asked. And to me, this is very telling. This is very telling. This ties in with the Fox News. This ties in with the next video I'm going to show you from Project Veritas, which is about 8 minutes long. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it is raw footage, but I'm going to show you the beginning parts of it, so I don't get in trouble with fair use on it. But this thing with Bernie Sanders and his wife and the bank fraud and everything like that, that's pretty significant for a Democratic socialist. And this can be a teaching moment where the minions of these social democrats out there need to realize that they don't really care about how much money you have. It's only how much they have. And Bernie Sanders, without ever having a job, has become a multimillionaire in public office, in public service. And folks, that's an oddity in and of itself. I mean, and it should raise a lot of red flags in and of itself, but it doesn't. But the point with the fake news is the lamestream media isn't going to follow this too much because Bernie Sanders doesn't want them to follow it. You see what I'm saying here? Bernie Sanders deflecting. He said, well, I'm glad you're interested in the Republican health care that's going to knock you know, and this is another one of these things that Indivisible Group, Common Cause, Bernie Sanders, these folks that are in support of Obamacare, which I have another story in here that it's actually it's worse than what they ever thought as far as the exchanges and stuff like that. But the 22 million is going to be kicked off. A lot of those are people who didn't want insurance to begin with, but also didn't want to pay the $2,000 fine to the IRS for not having insurance. And believe it or not, folks, and if there's any social justice warriors out there, listen to me, any social democrats listening to me, there are people out there that make decisions for themselves whether they want something or not. And this is something I ask a lot of social justice tyrants, social justice or social democrats, leftists out there that believe, you know, all this stuff that comes out of the left, the far progressive left, about all these people are going to be kicked off their insurance, and the vast majority of them were people who didn't want insurance to begin with, and as people get older, they're replenished with people below them that are younger and don't want health insurance. They have other financial priorities, you know, because chances are very slim that they're going to get, you know, sick beyond the point they can't afford things. And that happens every now and then. I know it does. But the thing with social democrats like Bernie Sanders is they want to use that emotional plea about health insurance for everybody to try to drive the narrative. And that's exactly what he was doing here. And because he was doing that, and because he's part of the, people call it the cabal on the left, he's part of that, then he definitely needs to be investigated. This girl had every right, this reporter had every right to ask the question, expect an answer to that question. If I was her, I'd have pressed him even more on it. I said, well, that's not my question to you. I know you have your ideas of what you should or should not, but you're also a public servant. You need to answer the people. And here is another example of how he thinks he's above the fray. And he feels that he is far enough above the fray that it doesn't matter what happens, right? So, but this all feeds into this fake news narrative, because if you watch the news coverage on this, they're all downplaying this. The lamestream media is downplaying this lawsuit, and this is a very serious lawsuit, folks. If you and I would have done this, we'd have probably already been cooler in heels in the hooskow by now. And the fact of the matter, he's not. He's absolutely not. So I just wanted to point that out, folks. I just really wanted to point that out. Dave, let me know if it's still echoing on the video side. I'll try another setting on here, but let me know if that's still echoing on the video side. Okay, some of the other stories that we're talking about with this, Paul Ryan says it's fine that 22 million Americans choose not to buy health insurance, and this is where we come into the differences between the Republicans and the Democrats. This was posted by Slate.com and Jordan Weiseman. On Monday, the Congressional Budget Office reported that the Senate's Obamacare repeal legislation would leave 22 million Americans uninsured within a decade. Now, and this is the other thing you got to remember too. All these projections that they're talking about, these people being kicked off their insurance, are taking over a decade. 10 years, folks. There's a lot that can happen in 10 years. Like Rand Paul was talking about yesterday, the free markets could, somebody could actually get their head into the Constitution, start reading what they can and can't do as the federal government, and decide the free market's the best place for this to be, and let the free markets roll over this. And, this could be a moot point in the end, by the end of 10 years. But see, they never tell you that. Every time I've listened to an interview from a Democrat or supporter on Facebook or Twitter, a supporter of Obamacare, they tout this number, this 22 million, but they never tell you this 22 million spread over 10 years. That's just a little over, 2 million. A little over 2 million per year. And so that's something that you need to keep in mind also. And I'm just going to pop out my calculator here real quick and 2.2 million per year out of a population of 300 plus thousand people in the United States. That's a minuscule number. I know if you're part of that 2.2 million, it doesn't seem so small, but the problem is Obamacare took over 1/6 of the economy. And even though the Republican plan's flawed, and it's flawed because they're trying to replace Obamacare instead of just repealing it outright, let the free markets do their magic, that number is always misleading. And let me see here. Both Democrats and Republicans seem to have accepted that this forecast is, in fact, not flattering to the bill, which is one reason why a vote on the thing has been postponed. But a few stalwart conservatives have tried to frame it as a positive. Most notable among them, House Speaker Paul Ryan, who spent an interview on Fox and Friends trying to spin the CBO's estimate of the deridal. What they're basically saying at the Congressional Budget Office is that if you are not going to force people to buy Obamacare, if you're not going to force people to try or to buy something they don't want, then they won't buy it. Said our nation's foremost P90X enthusiast. I don't know what that has to do with it other than Paul Ryan's in good shape. It's not that people are getting pushed off the plan. It's that people will choose not to buy something that they don't like or want. And that's exactly right. Now, they go on and do some snarky stuff in Slate. It's the smile that makes it so eerie, right? And just, again, the politics of personal destruction here, saying something about their image and stuff like that. So, but he's right. Ryan is actually absolutely right. Those, in the beginning of Obamacare, it was these 22 to 24 million millennials that they wanted to get on Obamacare because then their premium payments would actually pay for the old folks. But the problem is they're too smart by half, because under Obamacare, you could wait to get sick before you bought insurance, and then they still had to cover you. So they weren't paying premiums all along. And folks, that is the number one thing why Obamacare is actually crashing. Why Obamacare is actually not doing what it needs, what they promised it said it was going to do. Now, there's another story out by the Washington Free Beacon by Allie Meyer. 19th Obamacare co-op folds, leaving only 4 operating in 2018. Obamacare is totally imploded. I mean, it's like the black hole of economies, because it was if we don't repeal it outright, and a matter of fact, if they tried to, and this is the thing I was looking for, and hopefully they didn't do it, the too big to fail syndrome that has Washington D.C. so enamored about everything. The government bailing out these insurance companies and actually trying to pay them to stay in these markets. That would have cost the taxpayers trillions of dollars to do that. And so, again, you're talking about 2.2 million people a year over 10 years. That's how they projected it, which is a small number. I know if you're one of the 2.2, it doesn't seem small, and I understand that. I'm not heartless or anything. I just understand it. I'm just talking about pure economics here. And the one thing you have to know about the CBO, and this is why I always take their reports with a grain of salt, is that the CBO, listen to me, folks, the CBO uses Keynesian economic models to project things. And Keynesian economic models have been found to be error-ridden, because they make assumptions that just aren't there. And the Keynesian, John Maynard Keynes is the English economist that come up with this. And it's think about it this way: the free market is from the people up. And that would be, and honestly, there's an economic system out there that actually looks into that and studies that, and that's called Austrian economics. Okay, Mises, Ludwig von Mises, and Lou Rockwell has what's called started up the Mises Institute. And it's, if you want to study on economics, and that's my go-to website to study on economics, Hayek and Rothbard and a bunch of other economists out there have debunked Keynesian economics. Now, Keynesian economics, if free market comes from the people on up, Keynesian economics is an economic model where it comes from the government on down, that the government is control of all the spending and taxing and everything. And that's the two different models. Now, when you're in a society that should cherish freedom and liberty, which one do you think you should go towards? The one that starts from the people, the free markets, and goes up through like Adam Smith, the invisible hand of the economy? Or should it be from the government down? And me and my wife were talking about this morning. And she was wondering why all these things seem to be failing. And I said, there's one common denominator in why all these things are failing. You know, whether it's the economy, whether it's healthcare, or whether it's public schools. I said, there's no incentive for them to get it right. And she's like, what do you mean there's no incentive? I said, what happens if a public school teacher, and I'm not condemning them all, there's good teachers and there's good people everywhere in any sphere of government, there's good people there. But again, even with those good people, what are their incentives to get it right? And what happens when they don't get it right? Are they punished? Are they fined? Do they lose their jobs? Do they go to jail if it gets that bad? I don't remember anybody going to jail over the housing bubble, the .com bubble, the banking bubble. I don't remember. I mean, there's a few people that went. I'm talking about government-wise. You know, how many government workers at the FDA went to jail because the medicine that they approved started killing people? I was taking one, Actos, a diabetic medicine for 2 or 3 years, and they monitor me. I take blood tests every so often to check for cancer and stuff like that. And it was on the market, FDA approved, and it was on the market, Actos, and they found out it caused bladder cancer. You know, but did anybody at the FDA get rolled over? But the only people that really get hosed on these situations are the pharmacies. And quite frankly, folks, the pharmacies have to go through the FDA to get approval. So in my opinion, in my mind, the FDA should be the one that's held accountable. I mean, the pharmacy may have, or the pharmaceutical companies may have some culpability in it, depending on if there was any, bribing or, anything like that going on. But quite frankly, folks, it's the FDA that should be held accountable, and they're not. And this is the problem in when you have a free society, and like I said, I keep saying, all you got to do is look south to Venezuela and see what happens when a free society is taken over totally by government, especially a modern society. They don't last very long. They descend into hell, actually, and chaos. And I would not want to visit Venezuela right now. No way. And the problem is that there's people here in the United States that think that's an okay way to go. But there's no incentive for people in government to get it right. There just isn't. Dave's being sidetracked by babies in the office. Good deal. I love babies too. All right. We have a good example here where Obamacare is just totally imploding on itself. We need to just kill it and put it out of its misery. And that's why I'm with Rand Paul and some other senators about, look, we just need to, I showed the clip yesterday, we need to just repeal this stuff and move on. Let the free markets, and explain to that, what was her, I have to look it up. He explained to the lady, it was the interviewer, the journalist there from CNN, and she had kind of a confused, sometimes angry look on her face while, he was talking down Obamacare, but then when he was talking about the free markets, and she's one of these folks that have that in her mind that the only people that can regulate anything is government. And that's just not true. And this is a narrative that the progressive left has put out that, hey, these corporations are evil. You can't trust them. And the funny thing about it is, if there's enough people that don't buy a product from a corporation, the corporation goes belly up. And there's been plenty of corporations over the years. The automotive industry, just go down to Boylestown, PA. And there's a museum down there. Man, that used to be, the Reading area and that area used to be the hotbed of automotive innovation around the turn of the century. And then until all these corporations started combining with the Dodge Chrysler and the Fords and the Chevys and stuff like that, GM, they started consolidating their building and stuff like that, and they pushed the little guy out. But there's been big car companies. Packer was a huge car company for a long, long time. And then they just didn't keep up with everything, and they got pushed out. And matter of fact, through this last economic downturn, quite frankly, my own opinion here, quite frankly, GM and Chrysler should have went through a bankruptcy. They absolutely should have. They should not have been bailed out with TARP money at all. They're not too big to fail. Because if they would have, let's say if GM and Chrysler would have went totally out and they weren't producing any cars anymore, do you think there wouldn't be any cars out there to buy anymore? And that was the big story. That's the idea with the too big to fail. Do you think there wouldn't be any cars out there anymore? You still had Ford, still had Honda, you had Nissan, you had Toyota, you got Mercedes, you got BMW, and all these cars have models built here in the United States. You know, I'm sorry, I just don't buy into this Keynesian idea, and this is what the CBO does. And every time you hear the CBO talk about their numbers, you need to remember that they're working from a government down model instead of a people up model. And the people up model is free markets and capitalism and self-regulation. Works every time it's tried, folks. It works every time it's tried. Oh, and I have a lot of other stories in here, but I don't really want to get into them yet. I'm getting down a little less than a half an hour on the show. Now, Project Veritas. I like saying that. Project Veritas exposes CNN fake news, and this broke yesterday. And boy, howdy, I don't know if the heads are starting to roll yet, but you know they're in meetings right now at CNN, and they're not happy about this at all. Matter of fact, I doubt that producer is going to have his job for much longer. Now, this story I have here is from One American News Network, posted yesterday. From staging sensational news reports to releasing fake stories about President Trump and Russia, CNN's reporting techniques are under fire. Earlier this month, CNN was called out for staging a pro-Muslim protest after the London terror attack. In a video posted on YouTube, CNN reporter Becky Anderson can be seen directing a few protesters to stand behind her to make a gathering look larger. And there's been, let me stop reading, there's been commentary about that where they couldn't get close enough to do the crowd, so they brought people in to do that. Is that okay? I guess it's okay. Is it good journalism? I don't think it's good journalism to stage stuff like that, because it's not natural. It's something, like I said, something you staged, and that's part of the fake news. News is being staged. On Monday, White House correspondent Jim Acosta reportedly interrupted Sean Spicer during a briefing over the weekend. The station retracted a fake news story about the Russian prompting a policy change. Just days after the fake news story about President Trump and Russia was retracted by CNN, a new undercover video is revealing what may be a deeper problem at the network. While the station will now undergo more publishing restrictions, the issue of questionable sources and reporting points to a bigger problem that with mainstream media and bias against President Trump. This bombshell is one of many released by Veritas Projects. And so we're going to get into the video. Like I said, it's about 8 minutes long. I'm not going to play the whole thing because, one, I don't need to because it repeats itself. And two, there are some naysayers out there that, oh, well, he's edited things in the past. Veritas Project has edited things in the past to make them appear that they weren't, they're not... it's not right. They're trying to steer the story and stuff like that. And Veritas Project, as far as I know, every time I've checked them out, has released the raw video of it also. So they don't see you don't actually see the editing of that. So let me get this over here, and here we go.
The more CNN constantly Russia this, Russia that, this is ratings. Because ratings?
Our ratings are incredible right now.
But honestly, you think the whole Russia shit is just like bullshit.
Could be bullshit. I mean, it's mostly bullshit right now. Like, we don't have any big giant proof. I just feel like they don't really have it, but they want to keep digging.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the president is probably right to say, like, look, you are witch hunting me. Like, you have no smoking gun. You have no real proof.
And the CEO of CNN said in our internal meeting, he said, good job everybody covering the climate accords, but we're done with it, let's get back to Russia.
Then why is CNN constantly like, Russia this, Russia that?
Because it's ratings.
But honestly, you think the whole Russia shit is just like bullshit.
It's mostly bullshit right now. Like, we don't have any big giant proof.
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you stay categorical?
You are fake news.
Because of the attack of fake news and attacking our network, I just want to ask you, sir.
I'm changing it from fake news, though.
Doesn't that undermine...
Very fake news.
I know, but aren't you...
Even if Russia was trying to swing an election, we try to swing their elections. We're in our CIA and doing shit all the time.
Fake news. We start our American Provident investigations inside America's media with Part 1, CNN. Our goal is to expose the real motivations behind the decision-making process at our dominant media corporations. Fake news. One story has monopolized President Trump's time in office like no other, especially on CNN. Russia. In fact, since the inauguration, CNN has mentioned Russia on their air nearly 16,000 times. So we sent our undercover reporters inside CNN to understand why, and to determine if CNN even believes that the story is even real. You're not going to believe what you're about to hear, or maybe you will. I'd like to introduce you to CNN's supervising producer, John Bonifield, in Atlanta.
So you believe like the Russia thing's a little crazy, right?
Even if Russia was trying to swing an election, we try to swing their elections. We're in our CIA and doing shit all the time. Like, we're out there trying to manipulate governments. Like, you win because you know the game and you play it right. She didn't play it right.
Then why is CNN constantly like Russia this, Russia that?
Because it's ratings.
Because it's ratings?
Our ratings are incredible right now.
In the month of May, CNN's ratings were significantly higher than they were the year before. The Russia story and Trump have made CNN millions.
Because of...
So, my boss, I shouldn't say this, my boss a couple days yesterday, we were having a discussion about this dental shoot, and he's like, I just want you to know what we're up against here. And he goes, just to give you some context, President Trump pulled out of the climate accords, and for a day and a half we covered the climate accords, and the CEO of CNN said in our internal meeting, he said, good job everybody covering the climate accords, but we're done with it, let's get back to Russia.
The CEO?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So even the climate accords, he was like, okay, a day or so, but we're moving back to Russia.
Bonifield says CNN's CEO Jeff Zucker demanded that his news channel get back to the ratings winner that Russia is for CNN. Was that an editorial call or a business call?
So I understand it's all ratings, right?
Oh, it's a business. It's a business. People are like, the media has like an ethical... But all the nice cutesy little ethics that used to get talked about in journalism school, you're just like, that's adorable. That's adorable. Yeah, this is a business. Especially cable news, you know. Cable news isn't the New York Times, and it's not even like NBC News. NBC News still gets 20 million viewers a night. Cable news is getting 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So, they gotta do what they gotta do to make their money, I think. And so I love the news business, but
I find it so
I'm
fascinating.
very cynical about it. At the same time, so are most of my colleagues.
Yeah, it's like
I'm not alone.
Bonifield has worked for CNN as a journalist and producer for nearly 15 years. He not only gave us a tour of CNN's main newsroom, he gave us a window into the editorial bias and anti-Trump agenda of the organization.
I think that there are a lot of liberal CNN viewers who want to see Trump really get scrutinized, and I think if we would have behaved that way with President Obama and scrutinized everything that he was doing with as much scrutiny as we applied to Donald Trump, I think our viewers would have been turned off. I think they would have thought like we were attacking him. But I think our viewers right now, and I'm not saying all of our viewers are super liberals. Right. I think there's just a lot of them, and
so Trump's good for business. You're saying
Trump is good for business right now.
But honestly, you think the whole Russia shit is just bullshit?
Could be bullshit. I mean, it's mostly bullshit right now. We don't have any big giant proof. But then they say, well, there's still an investigation going on, and you're like, yeah, I don't know. If you were finding something, we'd know about it. The way these leaks happen, they'd leak it. It'd leak. If it was something really good, it would leak.
Yeah. It would have leaked before voting, I would say. If anything was good out there, it would have came out already.
Yeah, the leaks keep leaking, and there's so many great leaks, and it's amazing, and I just refuse to believe that if they had something really good like that wouldn't leak, because we've been getting all these other leaks. So I just feel like they don't really have it, but they want to keep digging.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the president is probably right to say, look, you are witch hunting me. You have no smoking gun. You have no real proof.
No real proof, he says, and that speaks volumes about today's mainstream media. Bonifield says CNN loves the Russia story not because it's true, but because people want it to be true. They're feeding their audience a false narrative in order to get ratings. Their enthusiasm to report false news is getting the better of them. On Saturday, CNN imposed strict internal restrictions on all future Russia stories after they had to delete and retract a story that was poorly sourced. And yesterday, 3 CNN staffers resigned, victims of fake news. So where does that leave us? The American people are fed up with fake news, and a mainstream media they cannot trust. It's corporate greed, market pressures, managers without integrity, newsroom bosses without courage, journalists who don't even leave their desks. The very purpose of journalism is to expose the world for what it is, not to create false political narratives in order to make money. The American people are frustrated because they have nowhere left to go to get actual information. This is just part 1 of the CNN series. We have so much more that we will bring you on video as our American Pravda investigations continue. Every dishonest television network, newspaper, and social media company is now on notice. You're being watched. We're coming after you. And while the whole broken, rotten media machine may not come tumbling down, maybe they'll wake up.
All right, folks, maybe they'll wake up. And there was a lot of juicy things in there. There really was. And the problem as I see it, and he said it in there, the people, if they reported like this with President Obama, they'd have got sick of it, and because they would have thought they were attacking him. No matter how true the stories were, to be quite honest with you, no matter how true the stories were, they would have thought that they were attacking President Obama. So they have, and this is something, I'm going to link this Laura Sutherland video that I watched yesterday, and I'm going to go back and do some more notes. I want to watch it again because she was saying a lot of things that I've sort of come to figure out intuitively, and just some reading here and there and sort of getting bits and pieces and putting them together, that people have a conclusion in their mind already, and they're only going to listen to things that support that, no matter how truthful or untruthful they may be. And this Project Veritas video proves that. And it's all about ratings. It's all about money. So that the climate accords weren't getting the ratings that the Russia collusion story was getting. So they did that for a couple of days, do their due diligence, and then went right back to hammering that fake fabricated story that the New York Times originally put out about Trump and the collusion and dossier that they had, or that they said they had, that was actual, and it's been debunked. But yet people are still the supporters of that narrative that Trump's a bad guy and everything he does is bad. So when the news reports something bad about Trump, we have to believe it without investigating it, without actually looking into it. And that's a problem, folks, in our country. It really is. And it just amazes me how many people close their minds. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago on the show, but there's a lot of things in there. You have John Bonifield, the CEO of the news, was pretty much told him to get back to the Russian story because it's making them money. Their viewership's going up. And again, that speaks volumes to their viewership. They have, and the term's been used a lot of times on the internet, they have a bunch of sheeple that are just willing to be led without question. They're willing to be led without question. They don't question anything. They resist everything and question nothing. And that may be kind of an oxymoron type statement, but if you think about it, the progressive left in this country, they're resisting all sorts of things that they know nothing about. They're just out there resisting. They want to live in their echo chamber. They don't want to give free speech to people they disagree with. They think that's hate speech. And that in and of itself is a problem for the United States, that everybody thinks this is all hate speech. That if I disagree with you, I'm hateful. We talked yesterday about the VidCon, and hopefully maybe you go over to YouTube and check out the VidCon and some of the stories that came out of there. Anita Skarzozian, I believe is her last name. You know, she was on this panel about cyberbullying, and what did she do on this panel? She was berating and calling the name of somebody who was just sitting in the audience that happened to have commented on some of her videos in the past, and bullying him. And she's on a panel about cyberbullying. She went to the UN and testified about cyberbullying. And what is she doing? She's sitting up on the dais up there, berating somebody because this person didn't agree with her. So when he is critical of her, and I'm going back and watching some of his videos that he critiques her, and I've seen a couple of them so far, and they were fair, honest critiques. They weren't blasting her personally. They were attacking her ideas and her ideology, or especially her feminist ideology. And so that, to me, that's not hateful. To me, that's not cyberbullying. That's news reporting, or that's commentary. You know, like I am, a Christian political commentator. I commentate on the news, and that, to me, that's not bullying. Now, some people might say that it's hate speech because they disagree with it. It doesn't fit their narrative, and I'm telling you just to throw away the narrative and start from scratch. You know, get out of your little shells, get out of your echo chambers. You might have to be out of your echo chambers for a while to let your hearing actually refocus on the world so you can hear more than just the stuff you agree with. Maybe get some dissenting opinions and find out why they're dissenting opinions and start putting some pieces together. Maybe you might come away with a better understanding of everything. Maybe not. Maybe you just go back to being your good old self, I guess. But again, I think we need to really, really think about all this fake news that's coming out here. And this confession by CNN, honestly, if we were being totally honest with each other, and we had somebody like Veritas Project and all, that got a hold of somebody in all the lamestream media, especially the TV news and stuff like that, I bet you would find the same story. You would find the same story. And if there's any collusion that's going on in the world, it's with the lamestream media colluding to try to bring a president down. And honestly, folks, it's not working, because here you have a president that really doesn't care about politics. If he did, he'd have bowed down and he'd have kowtowed to all this pressure a long time ago. He doesn't care. He said he was going to do something, and he's going to do it and try to do it and keep pushing to do it. He just had a huge victory with his immigration ban. the 90-day restriction and stuff like that until we can get some vetting processes in place, and hopefully they haven't wasted this time between the time he signed the executive order, and hopefully they got some good things in place, but he still gets another 90 days to make sure everything gets implemented. So hopefully they have been working in the background to try to get a vetting process there. So the president has had some big wins for him. I think one of the big wins was pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords. Other wins is getting rid of some regulations. Hopefully just repealing Obamacare outright. Hopefully the Republicans get to understand that they're not going to be able to fix Obamacare. They're just not. And so they're definitely going to have to hunker down and do something. Matter of fact, they're talking about they're going to take their short July recess, and but then they're going to forego the August recess. They're going to work right through that recess, where I think they should. There's a lot of things that need to be done, especially with those Obamacare. All right, let's see here. Oh, along with this whole fake news narrative, and there's a lot of streams of fake news that goes on out there, folks. There's a lot of streams. And here's another one, global warming, the imminent crisis that never arrives. And this is by Investment Business Daily editorial board over at investors.com. And pretty much, I've been hearing this all my life. Global cooling, then it goes global warming, then they're talking about climate change. And they blame all bad weather on climate change. There's a fire burnout in Utah right now, and someone was blaming it on, oh, this is all part of climate change. And couldn't be that environmentalists wouldn't let people go in and cut out dead trees for firewood and clean the woods out, would it? And then now we have this huge fire that has a lot of fuel in it, and you can't put a fire out like that. You just got to let it burn out, and it'll clean out the woods. But you know, there was a lot of people that around the area that were willing to go in there and to cut it for firewood. My brother up in Washington used to do that. I think he probably still does a little bit. My brother Tim, and they get permits to go into the state forest and stuff like that. And I don't know about the national, but at least the state forest and stuff like that, and collect all the down deadwood that they wanted. And he used to heat his house with all that stuff. They used to go out there and bring, like pole wood back, about, 6-8 inch diameter, and they'd load up the trailer and come back and cut it and everything, and that was their firewood for the winter. And that's not only helpful for the people to heat their houses with, but it's also helpful to keep the garbage from the floor of the forest like that, to sort of keep them cleaned out. And I just wonder, I'm just wondering with this fire out in Utah, how much carbon dioxide is being put up in the atmosphere. It's being released by the burning of these trees. It's a lot. I don't know if anybody's ever figured it out, but it's a lot. So what are they going to do about that? These climate nuts out there. I'm serious, folks. These guys are fanatics when it comes to climate. So we have that. Let's see here. Global warming. Oh, this is another one along with the global warming. More than 1,000 American mayors sent Donald Trump one heck of a message. This is by Dominique Mossberg in June 27th from Mother Jones. And they're talking about, well, President Trump pulled out. President Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords. We're going to follow him. Okay, knock yourselves out. You can follow them all you want, but you can't impose them on other states or other cities. You might be able to do it, and that's only if you have the consent of your constituents to do so. And I imagine if these people implement some of these Obama climate change, the Paris Climate Accords, it's going to do damage to their economy. It's going to tick a lot of people off, and they're not going to be in office very long. So let them do it. Let the cities like Tennessee, like Nashville, Tennessee, let the Nashvillians take care of their mayor politically, because she's going to do damage to the city. That she really is, and it's not. It's going to cost a lot of good people a lot of money. There's a good article over at LouRockwell.com by Patrick J. Buchanan. Are Illinois and Puerto Rico our future? And again, we do have some good examples right here in the good old USA with Illinois. I think California's not far behind Illinois. You got Puerto Rico that just voted to come in to be the 51st state. and they're in heavy debt compared to their population down there because it's a welfare state. So there's a lot of things going on out there that are sort of floating underneath the Russia story or the climate change story, the story of the day for the lamestream media that are very, very important for us to understand. And Illinois is in a huge pickle economically out there. They really, really are. There's a good article over at Mises.org. I talked about Mises earlier by Jeff Deist. This is America really coming apart as Charles Murray suggests? It's a good read, and it's something to give you something to think about. Something to think about on that article about whether we're coming apart at the seams or not. Justice Gorsuch delivers for the conservatives, and this is at I'm going to open it up real quick. Get in there. Come on, Bubba. Justice Gorsuch delivers for conservatives, and at the early juncture of his tenure, Justice Neil Gorsuch has placed his bold conservative bona fides in plain view, evidencing an important shift in the center of gravity among the court's 5 conservatives. It's difficult to get the full measure of a justice in the space of a few rulings, but Gorsuch's choices leave little doubt as to the shape of his jurisprudence. He's very conservative, very constitutionally minded, and we have Justice Kennedy's talking about retiring. I can't believe because of her health and her age that Ginsburg's going to be in there much longer. So President Donald Trump has the opportunity to replace 2 more justices on the Supreme Court. I'm told that there's, I may have the number wrong, 20, 30 vacancies on the 9th Circus Court of Appeals. I think he needs to get those filled up right away and tip the balance of that back into sanity at least. So, all right, folks, and there's other stories on there. White House, America's in danger if media can't be trusted to report the news by Alex Pfeiffer of dailycaller.com. America's struggling under Obamacare. Tell Pence the real story by Fred Lucas over at Daily Signal. So a lot of good stories out there. Now remember, show note, I will not be airing a show or doing a show for tomorrow. I have my first appointment for physical therapy to try to see if that'll help me with my fibromyalgia tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and they said it's going to be 2 or 3 hours altogether, and they're going to evaluate me and stuff like that. So I just don't have time to get that done and do the show and do everything proper. So I will not be in tomorrow. So I apologize for that, but I will be back Friday for Free for All Friday, and we'll have a good ending of the week show this week. So, folks, this has been the Dan Columbus Show. I'm your host, Dan Columbus, your constitutional warrior. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. Have a great rest of the day, and God bless, folks, and we'll see you on Friday.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.